Welcome to Aftersight, your home for stories for people just like you. Your vision loss journey isn't something to be ashamed of. Take a listen.
And that's the main thing I remember learning when I was taught the slack line when I still had vision, is don't look at the line below you, but look at your anchor point that's solid ahead of you.
If you want me to cook your dinner, you have to put stuff where it goes.
And I suppose part of this was also my own trying to figure out who I was and how to be in the world in this very new way.
I would say a potted plant, because I get sad when the flowers would wilt, eventually.
I'm going to say fresh cut flowers, because then I don't have to worry about killing a plant. I'm really bad at taking care of.
These people all have the same thing in common. You. Their stories are for your encouragement, your determination, and your inspiration. This is Aftersight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Aftersight. I am your host, Penn Street, and I want to remind everybody about the amazing concert in the dark that's coming up for us on May 4th. It's going to be at the Rocky Mountain PBS Masterpiece Theater in downtown Denver, Colorado. We have an incredible lineup, including the multi-Grammy winning Diane Shore. Again, that's going to be on May 4th, and you can check out all of the details by going to our website at AINColorado.org/concert in dark. Or you can just go to our website and click on events and it'll pop right up. If you are not in Colorado, but still would like to support Audio Information Network of Colorado, you can do so at that link. So I don't want to hesitate too much because we have an incredible guest today. He is doing superior work supporting the lives of children who are blind, and their organization has been doing this for a long, long time. His name is Jared Kittleson, and he's joining us from Arizona, where he is the Associate Chief Executive Officer at the Foundation for Blind Children. Don't go away. I will be right back with Jared.
This is Aftersight. If you have a question, please visit us at AINColorado.org/podcast-guest. Make sure to subscribe to all of our podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now here's your host, Penn Street.
Jared, welcome to Aftersight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've listened to Aftersight, but I like to start off the top of the show just with some fun questions before we dive in. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. What is your favorite activity on a rainy day?
Ooh, on a rainy day. That's a good question for someone who lives in the desert.
I know.
On a rainy day, I would say I would like to do a crossword puzzle.
Oh, that sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. And I know you've lived in other places, so I'm sure that came in handy. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
I would go dog person.
Dog person. Me too. Nothing against cat people out there, but
Right, me neither.
And then what about cake or pie?
Ooh, give me pie.
Okay. I'm the opposite. I love cake, but my husband, even on birthdays, special situations, if you give him an apple pie, cherry pie, he'll be happy.
I'll do pie all day.
Awesome. And also, Jared, judging by even my intro, you can tell that music is really important to me. If you had a song, when you walked out on stage, they were playing your song, your theme song, what would it be?
Ooh, also good one. I would go on to the next one by Jay-Z.
Ooh, love it. It's always curious. I think tells a lot about people, what their theme song would be. So that's awesome. Well, Jared, thanks for taking time today. I know you are so busy to be interviewed here, but I'm really excited. I think you have a lot to share, and I'm excited for our audience to get to meet you and understand what you do. Can you share the history of the Foundation for Blind Children, like kind of the history, how it got started, why it got started?
Yeah, of course. So Foundation for Blind Children has been around for, we're actually celebrating our 71st anniversary. We were formed by 4 parents back in 1952.
Wow.
And for those that didn't know the landscape for children with special needs back in 1952, if you had a child that was visually impaired, a 3-year-old or preschool age, your only option in Arizona, and this was across the country, but speaking from Arizona, your only option was to send your child to an institution 2 hours south in Tucson. And you would have to drop your child off and leave them there. And 4 parents back in 1952 said there's got to be a better way. And they reached out to other blind schools across the country. This was obviously pre-internet.
Right.
So they had to do good old-fashioned write letters and correspondence and learn how to educate a preschooler with a visual impairment, and started doing a preschool out of their homes. And that eventually evolved into, as it grew and Phoenix grew, that program became larger, and eventually we had to borrow some space in churches or schools, wherever we could find. Over the course of time, that grew into supporting early intervention, school-age kids, teenagers, adults, to present day here in 2023, we serve over 2,000 individuals a year.
Wow.
We have 19 different programs. We have a staff of 150 people. We have the largest preschool for the visually impaired in the country. We have the largest Braille library in the country, with over 150 transcribers. And we provide services to people in, I think, 38 states by last count.
Wow, my goodness. How long did it take for you guys to have sort of your own space that you could call it your own, that you weren't sharing it with churches and in parents' homes?
Yeah, we had a space a while back in downtown Scottsdale, which is just basically an adjacent city here in Phoenix, and
right.
We had gotten a pretty friendly deal from the city of Scottsdale, and that expired, and they eventually built the Civic Center. But in 1993, we built a building here, and then expanded in 2015 to our a second building on the same campus, much larger. So that's kind of the evolution of our campus.
So tell me a little bit about, I can only imagine the horror that parents had, before 1952,
right,
about dropping their kids. Because I also know these institutions weren't necessarily the most pleasant of places. No. And so I can't even fathom that. So today, how do you even find the kiddos, and what is that experience like when they show up on their first day?
Yeah, so, because we've been around for 71 years, and the fact that 71 years ago, Phoenix was a small, sleepy desert town, we've been able to grow as Phoenix metro area has been able to grow. And, because we are so narrow niche, right, it's not... Right. It's not that we need to be on every billboard or every TV commercial or radio commercial. And instead, those are more through strategic relationships that we've built, whether it be through pediatric ophthalmologists, school districts, state agencies. We've become kind of a mainstay here in Arizona as services and education for the visually impaired, call FBC, and that starts with that initial diagnosis.
Right. Wow.
We work with ophthalmologists throughout the state, really, where they give that initial diagnosis, and instead of just leaving that family with that diagnosis to kind of sit in it, they follow that up with, hey, just call FBC, and then we show up on their doorstep in 24 to 48 hours.
Wow.
And what we do with that, and we made it we figured out how to navigate the pandemic with doing that as well, but it's an important part of what we do and our mission, because that is such overwhelming news to see. It just shakes your foundation, and to have someone show up and talk you through what to expect next, and connect you to resources, and understand the grief process and the importance of connecting you to other parents who know what you're going through is a critical piece. So it's a multi-layered approach, but it starts with that friendly face who knows what you're going through and can connect you to resources, and that life spectrum of services from that first day all the way to our oldest client is 103 years old.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I love how you talked about community and making those connections, because I lost my vision when I was 9, and I was in rural Arkansas, and I'm pretty sure I was the first blind child in my county, definitely my city, and definitely in my school. And I can't even imagine what my parents went through, because there just weren't resources and services. The closest thing we had was the Lions Club. And the Lions Club was like, we read about the story in the paper. They came and they visited my parents and gave me a white cane. No orientation and mobility skills, but this is what blind kids need. And the eye doctor said, well, I still had some residual vision then, so these are some special glasses that might help her be able to see the blackboard. So the Lions helped with that. But other than the Lions, there really wasn't any resources until we moved to Colorado, which is one of the reasons we moved to Colorado, was because of Children's Hospital and all these resources and services. But I did not meet another blind person until, late into elementary school. And it was because it was definitely after we moved to Colorado. So I can imagine, a parent of a kid, because even in 2023, it still startles me how in my interviews on Aftersight, people will say, I didn't meet another blind person until, much later in life. And it's just shocking to me. And I can't even imagine from the parents' perspective of how important that is to talk to other parents that also have a child who's blind, and what resources and services that you guys connect them to. What are some of those first strategic items that you provide for parents?
Well, I mean, first, like I said, that first call is critical, right? And just having that human interaction, which can't be replaced by the internet. Anyone that's looked up a medical condition online looking for solace and comfort knows that's a deep, dark rabbit hole that is not always helpful. So it can be very isolating. That if the parent or the family doesn't have other family members or doesn't have any friends, like, who do you reach out to for that hope, right? Or that inspiration that, hey, everything's going to be fine. It might be a little different, but you still have the same dreams, and they're just going to look different, and the route to get there might not be as you expected it.
Exactly.
Right? So that's where it starts. Is that first call is really critical. We get them set up into the early intervention program with the state of Arizona, so that they can be part of the early intervention program and get access to some of the services, not only as for a teacher of the visually impaired, but a speech and language pathologist, if applicable, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist. You got access to that.
Yeah.
But then what FBC does in particular, we do a lot of, we call it parent to parent.
Mm-hmm.
So these are programs outside of early intervention just for our families, and the families bring their children, both siblings, their sighted siblings, as well as the child with the visual impairment.
Yeah.
And they do activities in the community, right? Where they go to the zoo, and we help teach the families how to access the zoo and how to engage their child and their siblings, is that it is, a normal family activity and help them access, a sighted world. And then we also do some on-site here on campus, a version of parent to parent, where we set up centers for the kids. The kids do, music therapy. They work with our early interventionists and some volunteers. Meanwhile, we take the families and we separate them. And oftentimes this is the first time they've left their child with someone other than a family member.
Right.
And they're just with other parents. And
wow.
that is an extremely emotional and powerful situation, because that's oftentimes that first meeting with another parent in person. Right?
Wow.
So we see these relationships last throughout a lifetime, right? Like we have parents that have full-grown children that are still connected and still really good friends with the people they met in parent to parent, because that becomes your new tribe. That's your new support network, right?
Absolutely.
They know the acronyms. They know what it's like to go to the appointments. They know, some of the assistive technology or some of the hiccups that might come with the IEP process. So
right.
It's a really critical part of what we do, and that's the introduction to FBC and the network of support that we offer.
So you really do connect the dots for people and give them the opportunity to, even after they get into the program, make some of those decisions themselves. It sounds like it's not a cookie cutter program that you guys are offering. So that's
it is definitely not. And people that aren't familiar with the world of visual impairment, there is no one size fits all, right?
That's right.
There's so much variable. There's so many variables with visual impairment, and especially with the rise in CVI or cortical visual impairment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors and a lot of variables that the kids come in the program. So you can't have a cookie cutter approach to this. You really do got to take it on a case by case and assess what the family needs and what the child needs.
Wow.
And we always have a saying here that we don't just enroll the child, we enroll the entire family and really bring them into the organization, because it's not just one program. Like I said, I mean, we have 19 different programs that we offer for all ages, not just children. I know our name is Foundation for Blind Children, but we serve visually impaired of all ages.
Wow. And yeah, I know as a kid, when there was a couple programs, not a lot, but there's a couple programs where my little sister could go, who she's, completely sighted. And it really helped her. For one, she got to meet other siblings that have a visually impaired sibling, but then also she herself got to be around other visually impaired people, because I was the only one she knew. And so she got to realize, well, one, that I wasn't so special, that there's more than just her sister out there. But then also even my parents got to meet other parents and have that support. And it's definitely not as robust as what you're talking about. But even as an adult, when I went to my first adult training program, and my husband and my daughter got to go through part of it. And that was really important for them because, again, I was the only blind person they knew. And so then they got to understand some of the technology and that I was using more than just me using it. Like they got to have hands-on experience with it. And I love how immersed you guys are approaching this, that it is the whole family. It's not just the person with the visual impairment. Jared, I know you are not visually impaired.
I'm not.
No, you're not. And I don't hold that against you. But how in the world did you ever get involved with this type of work?
That's a really good question. I get asked that quite a bit. I've always worked with marginalized populations. I worked out of college. I worked at a wilderness camp in Georgia for adjudicated youth.
Oh, and, wow.
They had, and this was in Georgia, you had the option, you could either go to a detention facility for 2 years, or you could go to this camp for 6 to 9 months and live out in the woods.
Wow.
And it's in the middle of nowhere, a 45-minute drive to your nearest gas station, and it was a non-punitive camp. And I learned more about human behavior and psychology than I could have in any classroom. And what you learned when you put people and strip out the environment away from them, is you learn things like racism and prejudice and biases that they're all taught.
Yes.
And so you saw individuals that were taught to hate each other find commonalities based on merit, right? Or common interests. And so you like fishing, I like fishing, let's go fish. And you also saw that the tough exterior shell, and these were tough kids. Underneath it, they were just hurt boys. And I had 17-year-old kids from Atlanta who would never admit to loving Harry Potter, would do anything for me to read them a bedtime story about Harry Potter. I mean, 16, 17-year-old kids that had never been tucked in had their own tuck-in routine.
Right.
They didn't have to act tough, or they didn't have to have that mask on. And so that was my first job out of college, which living in the woods for 2 years, got a little old and was cold. And so I the warmest place I knew, which was Phoenix, and started working at a school out here is an alternative school for 16 to 21 year olds. And so these might be teenage mothers or dropout recovery, kids that were expelled or recently released from the correction program. And based on what I learned in that camp, I became a principal at 26. And so these for 16 to 22 year olds. So, whatever bluster they had or however tough they acted, I just knew the more tough they acted, the more hurt they were. And that's something you can't learn in books.
That's right.
And I did that for 8 years, and eventually oversaw 22 charter schools throughout the country. This was pre-COVID, so that meant I had 22 board meetings in 22 different cities a month. That travel became unwieldy, so found something a little bit closer to home, and was working at a local YMCA as an executive director. When I was working on putting a golf tournament together with a colleague of mine at the Rotary Club, and he's like, you got to find out about this Foundation for Blind Children. He was working there. He oversaw the Braille Library, and I'm like, I don't have any experience. I've never worked with the visually impaired. Yeah. He's like, you just talk to Mark, and Mark Ashton is our CEO, and if you saw our facility or toured our facility, I mean, it's really spectacular, and he had a pretty clear vision that we're going to be the best in the country, and he says we'll find the resources to do it, but we're going to be the best, and we're going to put the best program, birth to 103 years old, and I need you to help our programs. And I said I was in. and that was 6 years ago. And we built programs since, and have grown programs tremendously. And and next summer I'll be taking over as CEO when Mark retires.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment. Well, you were talking about how you're about the different programs and that you guys are growing. And one of the things that you mentioned in your pre-interview with Jonathan is your Grand Canyon trip with your students. Yeah, right. And I just had to listen to it, and because I worked for Eric Weimer, I'm sure you know who he is. Yeah, I worked for his nonprofit for almost a decade, and he had a program called Leading the Way, and it was where we took high school age students that were blind and visually impaired. We rafted the Grand Canyon with them, and we also took high school students that had other barriers, not necessarily blind and visually impaired. And you've mentioned it a couple of times, you take people out of their comfort zone about their normal society roles, and you put them together and you kind of strip away all that and you get down to the basics. Like, you have a lot in common and you can really shine. But that trip, they asked me to do the trip with them one year as the mentor, and I got to experience that trip, and it was life-changing, of course, for the students, but I think equally it was life-changing for me I had never done anything like that or ever had the opportunity. And so when you were talking about your trip and what you experienced with the students, can you share about why you chose that? That is not an easy trip, even for people. It is
not. It is not like floating down the lazy river at your local water park. That's for sure.
No, it's not.
Yeah, we've though we call them challenge events, and challenge events are part of the DNA of who we are as an organization. We've swam the Alcatraz Channel. We've hiked to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Wow. Sailed the Spanish Virgin Islands, and then obviously the Grand Canyon trip that you're referring to. And we do it for two reasons. One, obviously, it's as you talked about and you experienced firsthand, it changes the participant's life. In the group that we took 13 kids. I call them kids, even though they span 21 years old, 14 to 21 years old. And this was a long process. This was during COVID. So our first summer got delayed. So it ended up being 18 months of training. And so these kids had to show a commitment, and they had to show up and do some pretty grueling hikes, because you got to have the endurance to get into the canyon, and you're at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and it's not for the faint of heart. And so
exactly,
they had to show the commitment and the drive leading up to it, and really the discipline of it. But that changes their life, and to be able to see that firsthand and watch them walk out of the canyon standing a little taller and speaking with a little bit more confidence, they're going to be able to tackle whatever life has to throw at them, right? Whether they start high school for the first time, whether that's starting college, a new job, meeting new people, they have something that they can hold their head high, and they got a story to tell that's immediately going to dispel this notion that they're visually impaired and therefore they can't, right? Which leads me into the second reason we do it, and it's really to change the narrative of the community as a whole.
Yes.
And unfortunately, too much of the narrative starts with what the visually impaired cannot do.
Yes.
Instead of what they can do, right?
Exactly.
And so if we can do these types of experiences like the Grand Canyon or Mount Kilimanjaro, that grabs people's attention. It's like, oh my gosh, they did what? Yeah. And if we can change that narrative to what they can do, maybe that's one employer that's willing to take a chance, or be open-minded to hiring someone who's visually impaired. or an individual that's, more open to striking up a new friendship or different activity, whatever that is, change the narrative.
Yes.
And that's really important. I don't know if that's something you've experienced in your life, is that immediate judgment of what someone can't do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And instead, it's just, you're going to do things differently. You can rap the Grand Canyon, you can climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you can fly an airplane. You're just going to do it differently. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned airplane, which I want you to talk about that, but I also want it, because a lot of your career has been working with at-risk youth and us that live on the fringes kind of thing. And what is it, do you think, about getting people outside and doing outside activities that shifts almost like the cell structure of you, of how you think, everything about you? Why do you feel that is so important in the programs that you've been part of?
I think it forces you out of your comfort zone, right? And that's really where the growth is going to happen, is outside that comfort zone. And so at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, there is no refuge that you can find in your cell phone or social media or video game, or retreat to the comfort of your bedroom.
Right.
You got to face it. And I think when you get people outdoors, and I wouldn't consider myself an outdoorsy type of person. I've been a forest firefighter. I've lived outdoors in the camp, went Grand Canyon, but I don't do a lot of camping outside. So I'm not a natural outdoors type of person, but those experiences are really powerful, and you don't have to be an outdoor enthusiast in order to have that impact. I mean, I think it's really, really powerful regardless, but I think it also has to do with the sense of accomplishment, because you're doing something big. Right. And oftentimes that does require something of the magnitude of a forest or a Grand Canyon or a mountain, to get that kind of scale and magnitude of the accomplishment.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I know when I climbed my first mountain, and being on the top of that, it seemed like all the other struggles in my life, like, doing an interview or creating a resume or, maybe taking a class, they all seem so much easier to me, because if I could tackle something that everybody told me I couldn't, if I could tackle that, then everything else seemed easier to me to tackle. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So, we do a hike at AINC. This will be our third year doing it, and we call it our audio trekker hike. And the first year we did it, I had to really scramble to find less than 24 participants to do a hike with us. And we do have guides, but it was for people who are blind and visually impaired to get out and do a hike. And then we did it. So the first year we had 21 people. Last year we had 67.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, and so it's going to be interesting this year how much more that grows. But it really showed me that there's a need for programs like yours, where you have that opportunity and that support, but you also have people believing in you. Like I tell everybody, like, I believe you can climb the mountain, and even if you just get part way up, that's going to be part way up that you never would have gotten. To me, reaching that summit isn't necessarily the most important part. The most important part is that you showed up and you tried. And so that's so cool. And another cool thing that you had mentioned is that you guys, that was part of your program, that you had a young woman who's blind actually learned to fly. Can you tell a little bit about that? That just is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, very, very, very cool story. It was actually one of our adult clients who had graduated our adult comprehensive program, which is a 6 to 9 month program where adults come every day from 8 to 3, and they learn assistive technology, orientation and mobility, the daily living skills. So they learn how to cook and use a washer and dryer, etc. Interview skills, things like that.
Yeah.
And this was what 21-year-old graduate. Well, she was 21 by the time she flew the plane, and she memorized her instruments in Braille. We had a replica of the dashboard.
Wow.
She learned that through Braille, and we made her materials accessible through her iPad, so she was able to study up. And we worked with a great flight instruction company that worked with her and did lessons with her and did classroom work and did some practice flights here in Phoenix before she made the big journey. And it was a tiny little plane, smaller than most people's offices. And she went from Phoenix to Colorado Springs to Kansas City to Louisville, and then landed in DC. I mean, it was a haul. I mean, it wasn't a big Airbus that she flew. It was a smaller plane, so it took a little longer. But yeah, that used to be our white whale. We used to say our kids can do anything but fly a plane, and we said, you know what? Let's see if we can't figure that out. And so a group did. And
wow.
Like I said, I mean, it's, her name's Kaya Armstrong, and that without a doubt changed Kaya's life. And but if it can inspire or change the narrative for other visually impaired individuals or community members or future employers or whatever, that's why we do it.
It's just mind-boggling to me in my lifetime how technology has changed, but not just technology, but the people that are making these the new things happen, right? I mean, these are pioneers in our community. I had a couple of, it's been about a month now, I interviewed somebody, and he brought up a topic that I had never even thought about, is that blind people don't have heroes. And that are blind, yes, I know plenty of people who knew who Michael Jordan is and that kind of thing, but we don't have heroes that are blind. And I feel like people like this young woman can be those heroes, especially for the younger generation, that like you said, it was the white whale. It couldn't happen. And you guys, through what you're doing, shattered that. And I think that's just so incredible. Well, Jared, what do you think is the biggest challenge that blind children are facing today?
That's a really good question. I would say low expectations.
Oh, yeah.
I think unfortunately the community at large wants to show pity instead of those expectations, and this has nothing to do with the individual with the visual impairment. We see this with kids all the time, right?
Yeah.
Where parents have this tendency to want to bubble wrap their kids because they're scared, not because that child needs any sort of extra protection. Right. And so, I'll use an example of in the kitchen. We got to teach parents to let your kid make a PBJ and make a mess of things.
Yeah.
They make a mess of peanut butter, jelly everywhere, a sticky mess, hose them down in the backyard.
Yeah.
Type of mess, because that's how they learn.
Yes.
What have you Would it be easier and cleaner to make that PBJ for your kid? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would it be easier to bubble wrap a kid so that they never fall down and skin their knee? Absolutely. But you're also taking some of those key developmental milestones away from that child. You're taking away their ability to adapt to adversity.
Yeah.
You're taking away that opportunity for them to find their passion.
Yeah.
Like we talked about with the sense of accomplishment. Those that educate the visually impaired understand that education doesn't just mean the classroom. Education is at home. It's in the community. Recreation and leisure is one of the 9 areas of the expanded core curriculum that teachers of the visually impaired teach. And so I think those low expectations are probably one of the biggest barriers that they face, whether it be the 4th grade teacher or the soccer coach or a community member or a future employer that sees the visual impairment or is made aware of the visual impairment and immediately lowers the expectations.
Right.
And I think that is so unfair versus just saying, look, this kid can do anything. I just need to make sure they're set up with the accommodations that they need. And it doesn't have to be, this super complex accommodations. I mean, just removing a barrier here or a barrier there is going to make all the world in a difference, right? If you're a classroom teacher and you just understand that you got to describe the pictures in your PowerPoint, that's going to make a difference. Or teaching a kid how to get to the bathroom or where things are, that's going to make all the difference in the world. Fortunately, assistive technology has come so far in just the last 5 or 10 years, and there was forced adoption with the pandemic. So I think that's been great. I think on the opposite end, that's one of the best things that come about. But I think those low expectations, unfortunately, are the biggest barrier.
I agree, and we talk about this topic on Aftersight quite a bit, all different avenues of it. But it is true, like we've even talked about how even the government sets blind people up to accept a life of poverty because, you're blind, you automatically qualify for these services.
Right.
And I'm not saying those services should be taken away, but I also think that they should be a door to getting beyond that. And I do think that education has come a long way, that it's fairly easy to get a college education now with the barrier of having a visual impairment. But then again, when you get out, the unemployment rate is still unacceptable. It's still at that 70 to 80%. And I don't know how we're going to change that. And maybe what you're saying, it's that low expectation. I know myself, it's happened to me over and over in my career, my adulthood, that the minute they find out I'm visually impaired, I feel like my resume goes down to the bottom of the stack. And without them even, now if they actually meet me and they actually do the interview, then it gets risen back up. But I do think it's like society as a whole, not just the parents. My parents, my mom was like that, what you described as a bubble wrap the kid. She was, I think she would have loved it if she could have just kept me home 24/7, where my dad was the opposite. He's like, no, get back out. You want to ride your bike? Get back out and ride it. Yeah, you're probably going to crash into something, get your knee skinned, but you would have done that anyway before you lost your vision. And I did. I have lots of scars on my legs and arms to prove it, but I earned them. I'm not ashamed of them. And so I had a good balance, with that. And I know people like Eric Wymeyer, he talks about how his dad really didn't treat him any different when they went on their wilderness adventures, and that really impacted him, not just his outdoor skills, but his overall as a human being. And I'm sure you guys talk about this.
We do. We talk about it a lot. I mean, you kind of hit on some, the thread of starting young and those expectation. I mean, if you're told your whole life you can't do something, you can't do something, and I mean, to be able to unravel that as an adult becomes much more difficult. So it is those expectations. If we can start early and change the community narrative, I mean, that's probably the best way to some systemic change within the visually impaired community. But it's also, expectations for adults. I mean, our adult comp program, which has about 30 some adults a year, has an employment rate within 1 year of graduation of 87%.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's because, like, look, you're coming into the program, we're going to hold your it's going to get difficult, but that expectation from day one is like, you're leaving here and you're getting a job. Like, that's it. It's not, if you have fun along the way, great. If you meet some friends along the way, great. But ultimately, we don't lose sight of the purpose of the program, which is
employment. Wow. I would think that you guys would have people flocking to Arizona just so they could be part of what you guys are doing.
I mean, we've had people move from, I mean, all over the country. It's not uncommon for people just to show up and say, like, I'm here from, Texas or Tennessee or Florida. But we've had people move from, we've had families from Ghana, New Zealand, France, China, India, all over that have moved to Phoenix just to attend a preschool. I mean, our preschool has about 70 kids, which sound big for a preschool, but all 70 of those kids have a visual impairment. So that's pretty uncommon to have that large a group within that age bracket. So
wow, that is so amazing. Jared, what do you think is the most fun part of your job and the work that you
do? The impossible happens seemingly daily and weekly. This is a place where it's very easy to be inspired and stay inspired. Whether that is stories like the Grand Canyon, but there's also every individual we work with has their own Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
Some it's very literal, and it is the actual Mount Kilimanjaro. Yeah. But for some of our kids, it's feeding themselves.
Yeah.
Or for some, it's being able to communicate what they want for lunch.
Yeah.
So you have these varying degrees of abilities and what their definition of independence is. We talked about that cookie cutter. I mean, unfortunately, vision loss isn't always the primary because there is 2 or 3 other conditions that are affecting the vision.
Yeah.
So that's you see that all the time, right? We have preschoolers here where doctors told parents they'd never walk, and I see them running up and down the hallway the preschool, or parents who never thought they'd move out are going to college and going to prom or getting a job and coming back and telling us about it. So to our adult graduation, I mean, it's all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's my favorite part about the job, or about this place. But my favorite part about the job is being able to tell a story. I'm the one that gets to go out and tell the community and talk to people like you and give tours and share the impact of what's going on at FBC.
I love that, Jared. Well, how can our listeners support what you are doing there?
So they can come. I mean, obviously, if you're not in Phoenix, you can check us out at seeitourway.org, seitourway.org. Check us out on our website. Anyone out there, I encourage you, even if you're not in Phoenix and you need some support, need someone to talk to, give us a call, and we can kind of help connect you to people in our community. It's a very small network, so there's not many states we don't know where the services are or who we could help get in contact with. So I'd encourage you to check us out, and if you're in the neighborhood, I'd just walk in and ask for me, and I'll have to give you a tour.
That's awesome, Jared. Well, what would you like the takeaway for people to be today?
For anyone listening, and if this isn't common knowledge, depending upon your audience, is that our independence can mean different things to different people, and the path is just means it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
If you have a visual impairment, it doesn't mean you can't. It just means you're going to do it differently.
That's right. And sometimes it's even better. I'd have to throw that in.
No doubt.
Absolutely, Jared. Well, Jared, I always love to give an opportunity to have my guests ask me a question. I've been, kind of drilling you for the past, almost hour. So do you have a question you'd like to ask me?
My question for you is, what is the accomplishment you're most proud of?
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a big one. I actually, it's something that's actually going on right now. And I participated in an organization, and I won't name names right now, but I thought it was an organization that, because I'm blind, it was kind of required that I participate in it. And there's just been a lot of bullying and policies and procedures that I haven't agreed with for a really long time, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. And recently I finally said, nothing's going to change if people don't start creating that change. And so I sent in my resignation, and I was really scared and nervous because it was a big part of my life, but I have gotten nothing but positive love from all around the country, and from people who are in their early 20s all the way up. I got a message not too long ago from a woman who's in her 80s and said that I did something that a lot of people wish they had the courage to do, and they haven't, and that she's really proud of me. And that right now is my biggest accomplishment, of really facing something that I felt was wrong and saying, I'm not going to participate in that anymore. I'm still going to be an advocate for my community, and I'm still going to give an opportunity for people to have voices. And I'm still going to do my work, but I'm going to do it in a kind, positive, respectful environment. So thank you for asking me that, because it's definitely at the top of my life right now. So I appreciate that, Jared. And I think it is hard, when society tells you you're supposed to do something a certain way, or you're supposed to follow a certain path, and it's so hard, especially if you've been doing it a long time, to break that tether. And it's scared because you kind of feel like you're out here on your own, but then you start talking and you realize you're not. Just like those parents, you were talking about, when they get, they're in that eye doctor's office and they get that diagnosis for their kiddos. Their world becomes so small, and but places like what you're doing, are bringing that whole world back out into the light again. And it's just, I'm so proud of the work that you guys are doing. And I'm so excited about all the growth that you've done over the past 100+ years. And it's going to be exciting what you guys, I've been following you guys over the years, and it's just been awesome. And the stories, like you've been talking about, these kids, and I say kids too, anybody younger than me is a kid. you guys have shattered that. We can't now say, oh, well, you can do anything except fly an airplane. That's not true anymore. Not anymore. So I just, all of you out there, shatter those barriers, like the ones that we've
figure out how to do it.
Yep, figure it out and find people where you can get those tools and that support. Right. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, Jared, thank you again so much for everything that you're doing, and you really are changing people's lives, and I think even saving them. Because vision loss can be depressing and scary. So I know that you guys have played a role in saving some of those. So thank you. And also thank you. And thank Audio Information Network of Colorado. I know I say it every week, but I get to do the fun part. Jared was talking about he gets to tell stories to people like me. And I get to be the person he tells them to. So I get to meet all these incredible people and enjoy just amazing work that everybody's doing out there. But you guys are the ones that do the hard work in the back end and, bringing the Jareds to me and also doing the work with editing. So thank you. Remember the concert coming up. Just go onto the website and find out more, aincolorado.org. And remember to be kind to yourselves this week and find a way to be kind to somebody else. It's good for your soul, and we will see you next week.